Oh, hello there. Yes, well, good grief, it's official. It's hot. And the problem is, facts don't care about my feelings. So I can just bleeding lump it, can't I? Yes, anyway, Pussycat has found the only sort of coolish spot out the front, and he's resolutely going to stay there, and I don't blame him. Anyway, for the rest of us, poor suffering working class types that we are, under the vicious yoke of, well, insert your own particular thing here, yes. One of the things I find intriguing about the fascist mindset is that it's always very, very deeply inept at a variety of different things. You know, I mean, you can see this basically with kind of where we are with reform, in the sense that if you get a whole bunch of people with overinflated senses of their own worth into a room, they will come up with what they think are blindingly good solutions to things that are also at the same time blindingly unworkable. And they do just shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, I don't know, can anyone point to something to me whereby a Reform Council, because they've had quite a few months now, has actually done something? I mean, you know, like hold a meeting, or not shirk some form of responsibility, or had to fire a third of their councillors because of issues around their Facebook posts, or something. Because they're just not there, is it? So far, like I keep saying, Darren Grimes has managed to, well, not fly a pride flag and not fund a pride parade. And, yeah, I'm sure that those huge savings from those two things are going to come flooding in to the residents of Durhamshire. I know I've just made that up. Anyway, a fine example I think was this yesterday from everyone's favourite ex-BNP councillor, Paul Golding. You see, BNP councillors, yeah, they're not around anymore, are they? Yeah, at least your British Democrats have the sense to actually sort of concentrate on toilets and potholes. Anyway, yeah, Paul Golding, and he managed to post this up, which is another one of those colorized films, which shows just how wonderful everything was in the past. And there is a significant problem with it, which is laughable, as well as a generic problem with it, which we'll come on to. Anyway, let's have a look at this. Do enjoy. Here we go. It's got some sound effects attached to it, which is brilliant as well. Yeah, it's a bunch of working class blokes, sort of blue and white collar workers, I suppose. Lots of them with dirty faces. They're sort of walking past, self-conscious about the camera. I've no idea. I haven't been able to find out whereabouts this is filmed. Somewhere north, I imagine. It might well be a mining town. Yes. Anyway, yes. All lovely, happy, wonderful people. Yes, and there you have it. Yeah, the past is a foreign country. Look how immaculate the gentlemen are all dressed. Doesn't mention the women. Of course not. Every one of them a true gentleman and patriot. Yeah, you see, you can tell that. Paul can tell that about their true gentlemen and patriots, committed to Britain and the Empire. Yeah, you can tell that because they've all got flat caps on, I think. Anyway, we need traditional masculinity to make a rapid comeback. Yes, indeed. But the thing about that, and if you like, there's a link down below to the actual tweet if you want, or you can wind this back and find out for yourself. But there is an inherent problem with this. Sorry, there's two inherent problems with this. I mean, the first inherent problem, obviously, is that Paul has no idea what was going on in 1900. 1900 was the beginning of the Labour Party, in essence. Okay? Yeah, there was a general election at the turn of the century, so you get the first two Labour Party people. Given the limited franchise there still was in 1900, it is very, very likely that most of these blokes couldn't have voted because there was still a very, very powerful property qualification that was still lingering on from the 1860s. Yeah, not that I know anything about this, you understand. Not like Paul, because he can just tell things by looking at a colorised photo. But yeah, so the majority of these guys probably wouldn't have been that wildly keen on the empire or other things necessarily. And I don't think we can realistically tell. But if you do have a look at the film, try concentrating at round about the sort of 15, 16, 17 mark, because there's this character, okay, who's in a flat cap, white collar worker, who's darker than the rest. And if we look at a more, I don't know, just try winding the film back, but I'm absolutely convinced that this guy is black. Which really blows a bit of a hole in, well, most of the things that Paul believes about the past. Still, why would Paul bother to check anything, eh? Because, of course, he is speaking to a whole bunch of people that do believe that they're very, very special and are bound to be right about everything. And, you know, if anyone like me points things out, it's because I am a nefarious communist. There you go, that's simple, isn't it? Yeah, astounding. It's really astounding. I don't know. You know, if you're gonna cite the past, at least know the basics. At least know the basics about franchise, if nothing else, for God's sake. Anyway, the other thing yesterday, it's too bleeding warm to realistically think about things, was when this whole thing about the idea of a meta-narrative, which cannot be abandoned, is still very much there around, for example, VAT on schools. We had this from Pieter Snepvangers, who is actually well, I don't know, he's not very old. He only graduated about a couple of years ago, but has kind of found himself very much as a thrusting young journalist of the year, and has won awards for his in-depth looking at things, except unfortunately he's managed to put this up, which is rather full of holes. Revealed the full devastating impact of Labour's VAT raid on private schools. Shut schools, displaced children and lost communities are the immediate results of a damaging policy. Yes, indeed. Whole lost schools. You know, think like the miners' strike, but 10 times worse. Except, well, I don't know, again, there's a link down below. You can read the piece from him, but it does stretch certain things. And there is basically the trade paper of schools, particularly, you know, for example, when I was running an independent school, you used to get Schools Week. They tend to crop up. Most of them are found, I believe, in staff rooms across the land. But a few months ago, they published this. Is VAT on fees really to blame for private school closures? We'll see. Headline suggests that ending the exemption has been a wicked act by a cruel government, but even the schools admit they're struggling for a range of reasons. And yeah, just to sort of slightly go into this, what the schools say. Schools Week has found that fewer than a dozen schools which have announced closures since Labour took office have publicly blamed the VAT policy. Most of the ones that did said the policy was not the sole reason for their decision. A closer look at some shuttered schools' accounts show they may have been in financial trouble for years. Yeah, there is a reasonable number of schools that close every single year for a wide variety of reasons. And a lot of these schools have basically, especially in the last few months, have basically found it convenient to blame the VAT and just shut down. But for years, boarding schools haven't been able to make any money because parents don't want to board their kids and kids don't want to board for blindingly obvious reasons. And, you know, let's forget, these schools are a business. And if the people that are running them don't make enough, not just, you know, that nice friendly small school, but most of them are run by consortiums. An awful lot of them are owned by Chinese overseas firms. If they're not making enough money, they'll just shut them down because the land's worth an awful lot. That's what's going on. And, you know, this idea that schools should just put up their fees and basically parents can just pay it and boo-hoo and then they'll go in the state sector. But just a cursory look at the numbers in the Telegraph article suggests that something like about 10 pupils, maybe extra, and that's a stretch because nobody knows, have gone into each local authority, which is, yeah, it's about half a pupil per school, at best. And that's really at best. It is very, very likely that in vast places in the UK, there haven't been any extra pupils whatsoever. That's it. You know, which I'm not entirely sure is a kind of devastated community thing. Perhaps I'm missing the point. Well, of course I'm missing the point because you have to maintain the story about how evil Labour is. And, you know, these poor parents, you know, like like Richard Tice, who had to go abroad because it was costing so much money. You know, it was costing them £40,000 a year to send their kids to school. How on earth could they afford such things on their inflated salaries already? So, yeah, you can see. Devastated for Mr. Tice and the squeeze. I might be lying about that. Anyway, do have a glorious cool day if you can do. Do remember that, if you do come across any fascists, don't laugh at them. Don't point out that they're wrong, because they do get cross. And at best, they just become violent because, that's what they're like. A bit like left-wingers, really. Especially those Palestine Action terrorists. They're awful, aren't they? I feel like I have to say that, and I feel like I should carry on saying that for a long period of time. Ooh, we don't want to support those terrorists. We need to support other ones, don't we? The nice ones that we see on our screens on GB News. That'd be far more sensible. Do have a lovely one if you can do, and I don't know. Wait for the rain, I suppose.